Hello, I'm Daniel Kirk, and you're watching a short film I put together for old-school horror fans. In January of 1961, I was a 9-year-old kid living in Columbus, Ohio. One fateful day, a classmate brought a magazine to school, hidden in his jacket so the teacher wouldn't see. My friend showed it to all the kids at recess. This magazine, issue 10 of Famous Monsters of Filmland, completely blew my mind. I begged my friend to loan me his magazine, which I took home and read from cover to cover, not just once, but many times. I loved everything about the magazine, the incredible illustration on the front by an artist called Basil Gogos. What a name fit for painting monsters. The bold lettering, designed by somebody called Harry Chester. The funny but engaging articles inside. The items offered by the Captain Company, where I was soon to spend much of my allowance by mail order. Over the years, I bought as many of these items as I could afford. Obsessing over my borrowed issue of Famous Monsters number 10, I knew I had to return it, and I needed my own copy. Fortunately, I found one at the local drugstore. I was transfixed by Famous Monsters and its witty, monster-obsessed editor, Forrest J. Ackerman, also known as the amazing Acker Monster, who often appeared in photos with the actors and artists involved in making the scary movies I loved. A few short years later, in issue number 24, I read that Forry was planning a cross-country drive to attend the annual science fiction convention in Washington, D.C., and on the way he was hoping to visit the homes of some of his young fans. He asked interested readers to write an invitation, and those who wrote the best letters would get a visit sometime in August of 1963. I immediately set to work composing a letter detailing my monster collections of bubblegum cards, models, paperback novels, and magazines that Forry might want to see. I also wrote about the meal we could prepare for Forry on that special day, including such treats as Hungarian goulash and I Scream. My dad helped edit and type the final letter, and we waited, hoping against hope that we'd be chosen. Before too long, the mailman delivered a note telling us we were among the lucky ones and letting us know the date and approximate time of Forry's arrival. This visit was one of the highlights of my young life, and my dad took a handful of pictures to commemorate the event. I've always treasured these photographs, but when my folks passed away and I was clearing out their house, I came across a reel-to-reel audio tape marked Forry Ackerman Visit, 1963. I had no idea this tape existed, and it took a while to find a tape machine to play it on. It covers only the first 20 minutes or so of Forry's visit, which lasted at least a few hours. But this tape is a window into an event that would have been lost to time had my father not brought out his tape recorder and captured it. What follows is the tape with my dad, Donald Kirk, interviewing both Forry and his wife, Wendy, and the questions of some of the young monster fans who attended the special event. I've added photos from the magazine to accompany the handful of pictures my dad took that day. I hope you enjoy this peek into the past.
The date is April 16th, 1963, and welcome to the first meeting of the Columbus Monster Club. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boys sitting here waiting for Mr. Monster to arrive, and he hasn't shown up yet. It's 5 minutes to 9, so we assume he'll be here. We haven't heard from him anyway. Mr. Forrest Ackerman, better known as Forry. Let's find out who we have present. Now, I'll go here and get the names of each of the boys that are here.
Dick Tilton.
Dick Tilton, okay.
Danny Kirk.
Now, I can't reach all of you boys with this little microphone, so let's have you come over here and give me your name.
Steve Karshner. Ron Cameron.
Frank Bateman.
Tommy Hammond. David Kaner.
Richard Jones.
Robert Logue.
Okay, does that cover it? And here's David Kirk, right? What's your name? And this boy?
Tim Purdue.
Tim Purdue. Hi, Tim.
Ricky Miller.
Hi.
David McLeod.
Well, very good. We'll introduce all you boys to the other boys who are waiting for Mr. Ackerman to arrive. We have a big sign out in front of the house too that says "Welcome, Forry." So we hope Forry will be here. We haven't heard from him to the contrary, so we assume he should be coming before too long. And finally, the big moment has arrived, and we're taping this, you see, for our little group here. Forry Ackerman and Mrs. Ackerman have just come in. And they've covered 4,000 miles on their trip so far from Los Angeles, California. And we just put a crown on Mr. Ackerman's head, on Forry's head here, crowning him the king of the monster magazines. Welcome to Columbus, Forry.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. We've been looking forward to this for many days on our way, despite heat and heights and floods and lightning. Oh, here we are.
How you left Los Angeles when?
On the 2nd of August.
2nd of August, and here it is the 16th. That's about 14 days in a row.
Yeah.
When do you expect to get to Washington?
Well, the same day that 150,000 other people are, unfortunately. This big march on the Capitol is going to correspond with our arrival.
Gee, wouldn't that be nice? That'll be quite a welcome for you. 150,000 people waiting to greet you in Washington. Well, that's one. This is a science fiction convention.
Yes, the annual, the 24th Worldwide Science Fiction Affair.
Well, for our information, Forry, how long have you been editor of Famous Monsters?
From the first issue 5 years ago, just before I came here, I prepared the 25th number of it.
Now, I noticed in your article you said you were a great fan of the monster movies yourselves.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Right.
And I must admit I was too. Still am.
Oh.
Only I didn't go on to become a magazine editor.
We had a very pleasant experience when we left. The earliest city on our route, we received an invitation from the mayor of it to come and accept the key to the city, and I couldn't quite believe that at first, as I know towns are more inclined to run monsters out than invite them in. there it is. It was
well, wonderful. A gold key.
It was presented to us by the mayor. We'll hand it around. Why don't you stay there?
Sit down, David.
We'll hand it all around. Everyone can hold it. It was handed to us by the mayor of a big city, San Bernardino, who is a science fiction fan himself. And this is the Indian arrow that is sort of in the...
Oh, yes.
It's a sign. So we'll hand it around. You can't see the key to the city.
We invited a photographer. There's one of the boys here in our Cub Scout pack, Tim Perdue, and Tim's dad is the night editor of the Columbus Journal, Citizen Journal. So I called him last week and told him you were going to be here, and I prepared a little story here for him, for the reporter, and he came over this morning, but unfortunately we thought maybe you'd make it this morning, and he took one picture out in front there of all the children waiting around that sign, Welcome Forry. So we hope to have that in tomorrow's paper. We had hoped to have your smiling face there too, but he said he couldn't make it back, so at least we hope to get the story in tomorrow.
Well, I imagine that you might be able maybe to give him this.
Very good.
This is something that each one of you is later on going to get. Forry's going to autograph it for each one of you later on.
My goodness.
But we'll give that right now to the...
Picture of Lon Chaney here.
Yeah. That's on Hollywood Boulevard, you know, where they have all the stars. Each star has a star in the pavement.
One
and
for Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
Me and him, we got a letter to
That's
him.
very
Yeah, we
nice.
got a road back.
Is that so?
Yeah, we got a picture.
From London or from
No,
Hollywood?
from Hollywood. We got a picture. This is my fan club.
Yes.
Oh, you mean Boris Karloff fan club?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, I think.
Very good.
We got a picture of him without makeup and one with makeup.
Interesting.
Well, if you
Well, that's
notice,
fine.
there is Bela Lugosi's own ring. That's the ring of Dracula when the vampire wore it in the
Oh,
movie in
boy.
1931.
How do you like that?
Yeah, do you see up here's the crest and the bat, and there's a D and 4 crowns.
The
And
original ring, huh?
yeah, it's a real. Well, you better take it off and let everyone
That was presented
try
to
it
you
on.
by Mr. Lugosi then?
No, we knew him the last 3 years of his life. I've got right here one of his scrapbooks, one of many. It did acquire around 1,000 photographs that he had taken of himself during his lifetime, and I have his wedding certificate and most every intimate thing connected with him. But he had befriended another young monster fan, teenage boy, who for 3 years drove Mr. Lugosi around, helped him out when he was a real old, tired man making these last few pictures. So that boy acquired one of Bela Lugosi's capes and this ring and a number of other things. But boy finally came to the conclusion the ring would do more good on my finger and in my home where everybody who was interested would see it, then he felt he'd had the pleasure of it, so he's kind of given it to me as the long invisible elastic on that stretching clear back to Los Angeles. He didn't entirely give it to me. He might want it back some Halloween.
For safekeeping.
Forry, are you ever going to put a copy of the ring on the market so fans can buy?
Well, I don't think that could really be done because this ring never officially left the studio. It was just that Bela Lugosi had it on his finger when he walked away from there one day, and I guess nobody ever really checked it out. Probably it should have been returned to the prop department, but I imagine a star of Lugosi's stature that nobody was going to trouble him about it. It's probably just so much time has gone by that it's gradually been forgotten about, but perhaps if too much publicity was called to the attention of its existence, why somebody might try to get it back to the studio.
Tell me this, how many magazines do you normally, let's say, sell per issue of the famous monsters and the spacemen and so on?
On Spacemen, I don't know the figures. I only do on the monsters. We sell 118,000 copies on an average. Have done that for about 2 years.
You know, this is more than any science fiction magazine.
I can believe that.
Yes,
They're very
it's
quickly gone from the
amazing.
newsstands. You look for them and they're gone.
Yes, and I have an idea if more would be distributed, then more would be bought.
I wouldn't
Because
doubt it.
wherever we go, we have the same experience that we look and we cannot find, and everyone complains, you know, we can't find them. We have to run all across town.
So it's either that or subscribe, which we did for Danny.
I had assumed, I know all magazines, when they give their advertising rates, they base them on the circulation plus the assumption that 2 or 3 extra people read every copy. So I'd just been multiplying our, we'll call it 120,000 for round figures. I'd multiplied that by about 3 and figured that was the number of people who were actually seeing the magazine. But a number of you probably remember, maybe filled in some of the coupons that we had a few issues ago where we asked what you liked most about the magazine and least, and any suggestions for improvement and so on. And we were interested to know the general age of the readers and how long you'd been reading it and how many other people might look at it. So I was astounded when the reports began to come in. There was not just a little trivial 2 or 3 extra boys and girls that were looking at it, but the figures would be that there were 5 or 10 or our whole family or the school or 25 or even up to 100. So when it all averaged out, it seemed there were close to 750,000 people that actually look at every issue.
That's very true. I always enjoy looking at it myself. You know, it takes you back a little bit to the early, let's say, older days, and then these screen thrills are very good, too. Tim Tyler's Luck and so on. I had quite a kick out of those because I used to enjoy them myself.
I buy
The old Dick Tracy serials.
I buy an issue and I come home and I start to read it. My dad comes and takes
That's number 2 there, isn't it? Yeah, he brought number 2 with him there.
Yeah, that is an early one. Well, we never thought there would be a number 2 when we first put it out 5 years ago.
Do you want to see what?
It was
I want to show you the magazine that started it all.
within 4 days in New York, we got 200 letters on it. We're getting about 50 letters a day when it began, despite the fact there was a big snowstorm on. The publisher was pretty worried. Thought, oh, gee, nobody's going to come out and get our magazine. But they
Yeah, this is the magazine that started it all. You have to thank this French magazine that you have, a monster magazine now. In 1957, Forry went to France, and he's very much interested in all science fiction and fantasy and horror books and magazines. So he picked this up. It's just a film magazine, but this particular issue is devoted just to fantasy. And it has all kinds of stills in here and articles. And Forry said, well, there may be many people in the United States who would enjoy seeing such a magazine. So they wanted to translate this, and then they found that this was more of a college-type publication, you know, that people that go to college already would read it, quite learned. then they thought, well, at least let's get these stills. And they found they didn't have them anymore all together in one spot. So Forrest said, well, I have them all in one spot. He had been collecting them ever since he was about your age. And this is how Famous Monsters came about. And
I started when I was 9 years old. That was the very magazine here that I bought in 1926. It got me interested in all these things. And when I saw that when I was 9
Amazing
years old, I
stories,
wondered,
huh?
well, whatever is going on in there? You know, there's a real bug-eyed monster.
Go ahead.
Hey, did Phyllis Farcus,
Hold this down.
when that was
Hold this down.
For what?
the reason for the Monster magazine started?
That's it.
Well,
I
that
read
was
the
just
second
a little
hand.
humor on the part of the publisher. Phyllis Farcus was his young lady friend at the time, and he liked to kid her in the magazine, run funny things about her every once in a while. I think he said the whole magazine was inspired by a preposterous hairdo that she had.
Did she sue you guys for $5,000?
No, that was just being funny.
Yeah.
Did Jim Warren marry her?
No.
I think,
Still
let's
single.
see, SUA. I think that he and her are gonna get married.
Well, he planned to, but life has many surprises. No, she.
married a doctor.
When did you get married?
Oh, let's see, about
when
16
was-
years ago. 15 or 16 years ago.
Forrest,
Yes.
48.
I remember one time you were really worried when FM15 came out. Someone robbed the.
That's
Do they
right.
still sell those?
Well, that magazine is still being published. It's
Yeah.
much smaller, but it comes out every month.
About
As
so big.
it's about the 37th year now that it's been published.
You know, the man who drew these pictures by the name of Frank R. Paul, he just died a few weeks ago. But before he died, he was an old man, 79 years, and he drew many of these beautiful cover paintings. Then Forry thought, well, now he's a grown man, he can ask Mr. Paul to draw him the same picture over again. He can have it for his very own in his living room. And Mr. Paul did. But this man that you see here, he made him look like Forry. And he called it this, instead of Amazing Stories, he called the magazine Amazing Forries. And instead of having a price of 25 cents, well, he put down $2.50 because the date that imaginary magazine was published was 2062, 100 years in the future. And we know prices keep going up. Then he had him do another painting. They're very big and they hang in our living room. And that's called This Is Your Life, Forrest J. Ackerman, according to the program that you have seen. And you see all kinds of monsters coming and shaking hands with Forry. And we're very pleased that he, managed to paint these pictures before he died. So
His name was just mentioned in the Brand New Life magazine today. We noticed it was Mr. Paul that he had died. And about 3 issues ago, they had a big article about science fiction. They showed a lot of other covers that he had drawn, and I'm going to have a lot about him in the future. Monsters and Spacemen will show many of these paintings, picture of him. I recognize that. Have you ever written to me, Robert? At least I've heard from somebody named Logue. I remember the name. And you look kind of familiar. Did you ever send me a picture?
I think I have when I joined the Monster Club. I got my badge and everything.
What is your name?
Ronnie Cameron.
It's in the issue about Dracula.
Yeah, FM, what was that, 22?
Did you receive my letter, let's see, August the 2nd? I wrote to you.
What's your
I put
name?
airmail and I hurried up and I was afraid maybe I looked up
August 2nd.
something.
Well, I think we were on our way on August 2nd, but there were about 62 letters caught up with me in Chicago that were forwarded. So I said,
what's your name?
you live in Columbus?
Richard Jones. Yeah, I wrote, let's see. You know, getting in the vote. I also voted. I was afraid maybe you might not be able to come to Columbus, and I'll vote to you again, and I give you my telephone number, address, and everything.
We may not have received it. By the way, did every one of you see the first issue of the magazine? This is it, in case you didn't see it. He was joking, said it's a collector's item because they thought it was only going to be one magazine. But the people were so enthusiastic when it first came out, and now it has already, Forry already wrote the 26th issue. That's #1. And he thought it would not be repeated, thought it was going to be a one-shot magazine. But it is very popular.
And issue number 12,
This one is going to be put out like this?
No, that is #1. This is it. Yeah. It is out of print. You cannot get it.
Do a color issue on something like Christian Whip or some of the pictures in color.
Well, this question of color keeps coming up. It's more a problem for the publisher than myself of how much money he wants to invest in it. We've tried all along in our magazine to kind of lead the way, to be the first to think up things and use them. There is another magazine that has color. I would kind of hate to copy anybody else. I'd rather do something new and original. I suppose if there's enough fuss for it, everybody just must have color. Why, we could put it in.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Did you by any chance see the Spider?
Mm-hmm. Saw the
Well,
preview.
they had the first issue of Famous Monsters in it, didn't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I remember seeing someone right by a telephone. It was flying, and they were looking at it.
That was
That's Burt Gordon.
Burt Gordon.
Put that in the picture.
He has Famous Monsters #1.
Mm-hmm.
And issue 6, was it true that Jack H. Harris was really going to award $1 million to the guy could, stick his hand through...
Well, I think he was very safe. It was a kind of an offer that was made like at the time the picture It, The Terror from Beyond Space came out. It said something to the effect, we will give a free trip to Mars or $1 million or something like that to anybody who can prove that this creature isn't on Mars, because they knew pretty well nobody was about to go running up to Mars and look the whole planet over just now for $1 million.
I mean, this was supposed to be about the 4D man, that if you could perform the feat that he did, and they'd give away $1 million.
They had, with the film The Fly, they had something along that line. It wasn't $1 million, it was some huge sum if you could duplicate the effects of the transmatter machine.
I imagine you've heard the comment about your resemblance to Mr. Vincent Price.
Yeah, just like him to me. Exactly.
I'm sure you've heard that many times.
Tell them the big surprise, this really is Vincent Price.
Well, how do you do?
No, we had occasion to be in Vincent Price's home, a few years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. Not in connection at all with fantasy films, but he is a well-known art collector, and so we came once with a group, sort of a club, and we stood and talked a long time with Vincent Price in his very beautiful kitchen, I remember, which is as big as a house, and I noticed the resemblance. It was quite evident at the time, although Vincent Price is about 3 inches taller still than Forry, who is not short.
No, not in the least.
No, Forry is 6'2", about, or 6'1". How tall are you?
Well, depends on how I comb my hair.
Whether you wear your...
When I'm wearing my crown, I'm as tall.
Why,
as
of course.
How come you got such a noisy son here? My gosh.
He's thinking.
He just
He's taking
doesn't
it
let
all
anybody
in.
else get a question in it.
Don't you have a question, Danny? No?
No, he's just taking it all in.
Very interested listening.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of myself at that age. When I was a youngster, I didn't have much to say, just all ears and liked to listen.
Would you like to see
You remind me of a young fellow who turned up at the door about 6 months ago. He had a list of questions about 10 miles long. Then there was a little girl about the size of these. They came to the door one day, kind of used to autographs and people interested in magazines and so on, but she had a little tape recorder from Japan. She came in, sat down, wanted to talk to me about Dracula and Frankenstein, which she'd never even seen for real, not even on TV. She'd just seen their pictures in the magazine that her brother had.
Or you want to tell them about how you write your magazine?
Yes,
Maybe
well,
that would interest the people.
when I start out, this is all the 25th issue, our anniversary issue. It'll be out about the first week in September. So I make a little square, and every one of these I write what is going to appear on that page. And then I'm happiest when I'm able to put a diagonal line across. That means I finally wrote it or provided the pictures or whatever.
And that is the end of the tape. 25 years after that special day in 1963, I visited Forry Ackerman at the Acker Mansion in Hollywood, California, and he kindly told me he remembered his visit to our home so long ago. Though it seemed hard to believe, I was impressed and flattered. And when Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine got a restart in the 1990s with Forry as editor, I was privileged to paint the monstrous images that grace the covers of issues 204, 210, and 213. Famous Monsters had always been such an inspirational force in my young life that I was thrilled at long last to become an artistic contributor. And when Forry called me at home one night to tell me how much he loved my artwork for Famous Monsters, I couldn't have been more delighted. It's been fun for me to relive that special day back in 1963. And as always, thanks for the memories, Forry.